Welcome to Thriving Moms of Autistics podcast, a free resource for moms raising young autistic children. I am your host, Dr. Christina Wilson. I created Thriving Moms of Autistics after years of experience working with families and having my own autistic child. I coach moms of young autistics one-on-one to tap into their strengths, create a supportive community, set firm boundaries, and raise their autistic child with confidence. Subscribe to the podcast and check out the earlier episodes so you don't miss a thing. Now, let's get to it.
Hi, Mom. Setting boundaries can be really complicated, but it is necessary to set boundaries with others. Your mind is probably flooding right now back to all those past experiences where you got the unsolicited advice from others, and that were well-meaning. The stares or the judgment coming from people in public during a meltdown, or family members who say, "Oh, just let them do that," because they don't really understand the consequences that it might have for your child. It is, think of this. Is it even possible to confidently navigate these situations and maintain your sanity while keeping your child safe? Is that even possible? Well, in this episode, I explore your options and, whenever it comes to setting boundaries with others and in these situations. So find the full transcript at thrivingmomsofAutistics.com/83 and share the podcast with other moms, to help them grow in their autism journey. And you might even add a review to Apple Podcast, which will also do that same thing and further the reach. And don't forget the Thriving Moms of Autistics YouTube channel and hit subscribe. I appreciate you. So when setting boundaries actually feels like it's impossible for moms of autistics. And here are some real life examples of such events that we commonly experience. A nonverbal child gets overwhelmed in crowds, and a child just keeps on pressuring them to play with them or trying to get their attention. But how do they let you know what they need, right? It's hard for all of us to deal with someone who will not take no for an answer and just keeps on and on and on. So that's hard for anyone, right? Or someone that doesn't understand that the child cannot verbally communicate with them, or that the child is listening even though they're not looking at them. Those things, it gets complicated because not everyone knows. So navigating public or family holidays, when your child is sensitive to noises, especially on the 4th of July, that can be really difficult as well. Some people shrug it off and they don't want to listen. They think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. What's the problem? That's just frustrating. I live in a neighborhood and it's in the city and it's extremely loud. I deal with this type of frustration every day. And there's fireworks, loud music, sirens, yelling, gunfire, you name it. We've got it in the city. And we plan for sirens and barking and construction noises, things like that. We have certain things ready for that. But it's frustrating when others just refuse to modify their music or follow the law in general, the expectation. And there's people that just don't want to do that, right? So as a mom, I have been teaching others about how noise impacts um, autistics. And unfortunately, we're dealing with people who lack concern for other human beings as it is. I mean, if they're engaging in these types of behaviors to begin with, then they don't care. So moving to the country is not an option for us right now, but it's on our radar and it's something that we're working toward. Um, and people just can't up and move and they can't, so they have to figure out how to remedy these situations in the meantime. And moms often feel powerless in these situations. When you're having to rely on someone else to do the right thing, it's really hard. Or maybe they're not aware of doing the right thing because they don't, it's something a little bit different. Um, so you do feel powerless. And sometimes moms don't set boundaries for the very reasons why they should set boundaries. And here are some examples of what keeps us from setting those boundaries with others. One is people pleasing. Confrontation is hard for most people, and especially in um, social situations. There's a fear um, of unfair judgment, unsolicited advice, pressure to conform, refusal to understand. Yeah, some people just are like, "Oh, that's your problem," right? We've all been around those people. Feeling overwhelmed. So, how do moms of autistics gain back some power during these common challenges and strengthen the boundaries that they do set in place? When you set boundaries with others, you need to do the following, okay? You need to know your audience. That's a big one. So, you know when someone is likely to hear your message or not. I mean, sometimes you don't know because you don't know them. Um, but you do this enough times and you kind of have an idea. And if they aren't, you're welcome to just simply state, uh, the music is pretty loud and Davey needs some quiet time right now. Thank you for understanding. Okay. Now they can choose to help or no. That is up to them. So you can accept their decision and move on. But also keep in mind, you might you might need to move to a different intervention. Okay. And that's okay because you are your child advocate first. The second is to intervene or don't intervene until you are calm. So that's so important. So important. How many times have we said something and it's like, oh, that didn't come out right and it made it worse, right? So be calm and firm in your approach. And as they say, you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. And it's true. If you're feeling uncertain about your approach, practice it. Practice it first. You can role play with someone and get their feedback or additional insight. That's always helpful. Now, they also say two heads are better than one. Another is to be assertive. Okay, not aggressive. That is different from being assertive. And aggression is not helpful. You don't need to get into a big match with somebody. That's not the point. The point is to advocate for your child, and being assertive is advocating for your child. And my son knows he's autistic. And all kids are different, right? Not everyone knows. He's at an age where, he is aware and he knows what that means. The good, the bad, and the ugly, anything that goes with it. He's big on the why behind things. But I usually advocate one-to-one with someone when he's not around. Um, when I can, sometimes you can't. He doesn't need to watch me explain autism to others all the time. He just doesn't. So I'm mindful of that. Now, to kind of cover the base of what that means in the here and now, like at this point, for the autism community, what they prefer, the majority prefer, that might change at some point, and it usually does. But right now, the majority will tell you that they prefer the term autistic. Otherwise, with autism implies that there's something wrong that needs to be fixed, and even it's a neurological condition. And, you experience the world differently, and those experiences are not all bad. It's not entirely negative, as some people who don't get it seem to think that they make those assumptions, right? So the issue is that we run into people, or when we're trying to set boundaries, the people that we need to set them with are those who don't understand autism or just really don't have that information. And the child doesn't choose to have a meltdown. Their mind and their body are experiencing the world differently. So in the next week, okay, consider those times that you wish you had intervened, but you didn't, or wished you had set those boundaries. Now, how might you do things differently next time? I hope this helps and that you really thought about things in a different way, or, are feeling optimistic about the future today. I look forward to our time together next week. Have a blessed week.
Thanks for listening to Thriving Moms of Autistics podcast. Be sure to leave a review and tell other moms of autistics about the podcast. Let's support each other. Find the full transcript for this episode at thrivingmomsofautistics.com. And be assured, you are not alone in your journey.